Welcome to ACP, the Amazon Connect podcast. This is the show that focuses on Amazon Connect and related technologies. I'm your host, Tom Morgan, and I'm joined as usual by my co-host, AWS Solution Architect and Contact Center Consultant, Alex Baker. We are also joined today by Dimitri Muntean, Managing Director at SequenceShift. Find out more about Cloud Interact by visiting us at cloudinteract.io. Welcome to the latest episode of ACP and a special welcome to Dimitri. Dimitri, you are coming to us all the way from Sydney, and because I hate myself, I had to look up the weather and it looks amazing. We are coming out of a very rubbish weather January thing happening in winter in the UK, so it's great to have you on the podcast. So welcome.
Thank you, guys. Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Alex.
So please, in your own words, do you mind just giving us a little bit of introduction about yourself and about SequenceShift?
Sure. Yes, my name is Dimitri. I'm Managing Director of SequenceShift, and prior to starting SequenceShift, I've been working in PCI Compliance and general security space. And I also had some experience working in telecoms, so quite know the telephony a bit. SequenceShift focuses on PCI compliance for Amazon Connect. So we provide solutions that are designed specifically for Amazon Connect, and they solve the issue of PCI compliance in a number of ways. So we have two solutions at the moment. One is the agent-assisted phone payment. Another one is the self-service IVR.
Okay, so let's sort of take a step back for a second, and I want to make sure that everyone's on the same page. So I think I know what PCI compliance is, but can you help me? Like, if I don't know what PCI compliance is, what is it, and why is it? Why should I care about it?
So PCI compliance is a set of rules created by Visa, MasterCard, and other schemes, card schemes, to govern how the cardholder data is stored, processed, transmitted, and it's applicable to any business that is doing one of those things with the cardholder data. So if you touch cardholder data, namely credit card numbers and debit card numbers, you are exposed to PCI compliance, and you're subject to PCI compliance. There are different levels of compliance depending on the number of cards that you process as a business, you process in a year, with the toughest one being level 1. But level 1 and level 2 require an external third-party QSA, qualified security assessor, to come in and assess your infrastructure, your people, your processes, everything that is around the cardholder data.
So this is about the card companies wanting to keep a confidence in the system, right? By saying it's safe to use cards, like, because the people in the process, there's a compliance sort of management process that makes sure that they're doing the right thing all the time, and people are making sure that's true.
Correct. So on a high level, it is a way of, giving people peace of mind that they're working, if they're providing their cardholder details to a company and that company is PCI compliant. That means the way they're going to handle your card details is going to be secure and, to the best available security.
Got it. And that responsibility, I guess, flows, it includes the company, let's say the shop or the retailer, whoever it is, taking the cardholder data. It also includes whatever they do with it and ongoing. And like, are there different sets of rules for different people in the chain, essentially? Because I'm thinking, if I'm a shop, I take my cardholder data, probably then I put it into some system, either like what I've been given by my bank or whatever, or if it's online, there's a process for doing that, I guess. And then like all the way up until it gets to the bank. Are there different sort of levels, if you like, for the different people in the chain?
Well, there's difference between service providers, so those companies that provide services based on the cardholder data, so those that process, store, perform recurring billing, and things like that. So there are additional requirements for the service providers, but generally PCI compliance is a set of rules, and it's applicable to everyone, and it goes up to the bank. The banks don't have to be PCI compliant, but anyone else down the line has to be compliant. The general approach that has been, market has taken over the last probably decade is to outsource as much PCI compliance as possible. So to find a vendor, to find a third party to perform the majority, if not all, work related to the cardholder data. But even then, the customer or the business that uses the third-party provider to process the card data is still exposed to the PCI scope. It's just the exposure is absolutely minimal. So that can be either SAQ-A or SAQ-D, so self-assessment questionnaire of type A or type D, and that just varies the number of requirements that they have to comply with. Just for comparison, the full standard is over 300 requirements. The SAQ-A is about 24 requirements.
Okay, I think there's a perception sometimes that PCI compliance is just for big companies, and it's not something you have to worry about if you're just like, I've just opened a flower shop and I've just gone to Amazon Connect and got a phone number and there's just me and my friend. I guess that's where providers can really help, right? Because I'm going to assume, and you can correct me, that actually PCI compliance does also apply there, as long as you're dealing with cards, and that's where a provider can really help, like take some of that workload and bring it back down to what you were talking about, like the self-assessment questionnaire, if you like, that rather than making it a very onerous process.
Yeah.
On that point, sorry, Dimitri, it'd be interesting to know a bit more about, you mentioned sort of level 1, level 2 kind of categorization of organizations as well. It'd be good to hear.
Yeah, so generally, it's all about the risk profile. So, and you're absolutely right. The levels, they are assigned based on the number of cards handled in a year. So anything below 20,000 is level 4. That's the least, the lowest level that can be assigned to a merchant, a business that processes card payments. Level 3 is about 20,000 and 1 million. Level 4 is 1 to 6, and anything above 6 million is level 1. And also schemes, so Visa and MasterCard, can assign the level themselves. So even if a merchant, say, qualifies for level 3, but if they deem them high risk, they can assign them level 1. The service providers can be only level 1 or level 2, regardless of the number of cards. Well, if they process below 1 million, they're still level 2. So the difference there is because level 3 and level 4 doesn't require you to involve a third party to do an assessment, a security assessment. But level 1, level 2 require having a third party. And service providers, they're just required to have a third party assess their security.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, so that's kind of the landscape where we have this problem. And so what kind of really high level, what does Sequence Shift do as to kind of solve for that problem, and how do you do it?
Yeah, so in effect, who we are is we are that third party that provides the solutions to reduce the exposure to PCI compliance. So we handle the card details ourselves on behalf of the customer, and that helps merchants, businesses reduce exposure to PCI compliance. And there's a lot of misunderstanding on the market, and it's applicable to Amazon Connect. So with Amazon Connect itself has tools to kind of provide you with the security around the card data. There's pause and resume, although it's not deemed, it's not suitable for PCI compliance, but a lot of companies try and use that. They pause the call recording when customer is about to provide their card information and resume afterwards. There's information on how to encrypt the card data. So Amazon Connect is capable of encryption of information. And also Amazon Connect itself is PCI compliance service. It's level 1 compliance service. It's covered in the services in scope. So there's a page on AWS website that covers all the services, and Amazon Connect is there. So on a high level, a lot of people think that, okay, with all of that means I'm compliant.
They make it sound like it's all compliant, right?
Correct. But without using a third party, you are exposed to the full scope. So over 300 requirements are applicable. And these requirements are not only technology requirements. Those requirements cover processes, people in the organization, their roles, what they do, how they do it. And that becomes a real burden. And we've seen that a lot of times customers would look at our solution, decide that it's too expensive, go and build their own solution, go through the first audit, and understand that they didn't save a bit. yes, building your own solution is cheaper in the short term, but in the long run, if you look at it, PCI compliance keeps changing. For example, at the end of March, the PCI version 4 becomes the default one, and that brings a lot of new requirements to the customer. So companies that have built their own solution and been running so far with them will now have to assess their solution against level 4, against PCI version 4, and they will realize that there's a lot more things in scope that they need to look into, and they need to adjust their solution, adjust their processes, and do a lot of other stuff to maintain their compliance. By using third party, that's responsibility of your provider. Your provider needs to be a compliant level 4, version 4 compliant. So
it completely makes sense. Like it's all those things that are not the primary focus of the organization. It's just like outsourcing your website or your SEO or a million other things that are not core to like what your company is doing, with the added like flavoring of risk as well. Like, you know, the added risk exposure you pick up by not doing it properly.
That's absolutely right. That's absolutely right. Yeah.
Can we touch a bit more quickly on, I'm interested in what you said about pause and resume in particular, Dimitri. I think that's something that is quite common from what I've seen across contact centres that might be taking payments. A lot of them seem to adopt pause and resume as sort of that base level of this will stop us from capturing the card details. Why is it that that in itself might not be sort of compliant and might not be what they actually need?
So ultimately, it is up to QSA to say if it's compliant or not compliant. But by using pause and resume, you solve only one piece of the puzzle. You solve the problem of having card data recorded somewhere. And that means where the storage that you use for recording, usually S3, doesn't fall into the PCI compliance scope. However, you absolutely sure you're pausing it every time, and resuming maybe not that important in that context, but are you sure that it's paused every time? So that's solving just one problem, but you also have a problem of agents sitting there, and because agents are on the call and they're using computers, there are other devices in the room, all of that from PCI compliance perspective has to be segregated. So network has to be segregated because the cardholder data travels through those computers. They're typing it in, they're using headsets. All of these devices need to be patched. They need to be, patched within a month of the release of the latest security update. So you need to patch your phones. You need to patch your computers. You need to use some sort of recording tools for the screen to make sure the agent is not recording this data, in a text file and printing it out and taking that home. You need to ensure that it's a clean room environment. The agents are not writing the information down, and taking that home. So pause and resume solves just the problem of the recording. You still have the people, which are agents. You have the processes, how the card data is taken, and you have all that infrastructure that the card data travels through that needs to be segregated, kept up to date, maintained, and everything that comes with it.
That totally makes sense.
Makes sense, yeah. Great answer, thank you.
Yeah, cool. So you said earlier that you had two different models for kind of delivering your solution on Connect, agent assisted and non-agent. Is that correct? Do you want to just walk through those? Yeah, because it'd be good to understand like how that works.
Yeah, so I'll start with the self-service option, which is the easiest one. So it's basically a customer reacting or providing their card data in return of after listening to the prompts. So a prompt play, please enter your card number. They enter the card number. Please enter your expiry date, CVV, etc. So it is a simpler solution in terms of there's no agent involved in that process. What's different about our solution compared with other vendors is that with our solution, the call never leaves Amazon Connect. If you look at what's available on the market, it is usually the dial out. So you need to see your customer goes through the contact flow. And at the time when they need to make a payment, Amazon Connect dials out to a third party. And that part where the card data is captured is hosted in that third-party IVR. And it becomes a challenge to pass additional data. So, for example, an amount that customer must pay, any reference number that you want to pass with the payment. any other additional information that's required for that payment. So if you look, it just becomes really problematic to pass that additional information into the third party. With our solution, the call always stays in the Amazon Connect. So as the customer goes through the flow, they're somehow authenticated, or they provide some information about, for example, their invoice number. And you can do a data deep. You can look up that information in your database with the help of the Lambda. You can retrieve all the information that you have about that payment. You can, you can tell the customer the amount that's outstanding. You can tell the customer other reference numbers. And if the customer wants to proceed with the payment, that information is just passed to our system via API call. And then they go into providing their card data, which still happens within Amazon Connect and is immediately sent over to our environment in the encrypted format. So we provide an encryption key, which gets imported. It's a public key, so that key can only be used to encrypt the data. It gets imported into Amazon Connect. The customer provides their data, it gets encrypted and sent over into our environment.
That's nice. And I can kind of see, like, that's a nice model for security as well, because there's no other humans present, like, in that process. It's all, you've taken the agent out, which I guess it's a compromise, right? Because it's arguably safer, but is it quite the same kind of human touch? But I guess companies have that choice, right?
Yeah, and a lot of our customers use both of our solutions, but they have different use cases, and it is really down to what type of why the customer is calling. So, for example, if we're talking about the company that collect payments, so for example, your energy company. So you are calling to provide a payment, and that is the reason for your call. And for you or for the business, it doesn't really matter if it's an agent-assisted or self-service. The customer will provide the payment because that's the reason they called. They call this organization. But if it's a sales call, for example, where an agent is trying to convince the customer to make a purchase, to buy something, switching them off, after the conversation, after agent and the customer has agreed to proceed with the purchase, switching them to automated IVR, can lead to customers dropping off, because it's much easier to hang up on an automated IVR compared to, a human when you're talking to a human. And this is where our second solution comes in. So it's an agent-assisted solution. The way it works is the agent and the customer, they maintain voice communication. So they keep talking to each other during the process all the time. And the customer still uses their keypad to provide their card data, which pops up on a page to the agent. So the agent is looking on the page, and the information that's entered by the customer pops up there in a masked format, and the agent can confirm all the details. So, for example, they can see the type of the card, the last 4 digits. They can't see the full card number, only the last 4 digits, and they can't see CVV, but they can confirm, the amount, everything else, and the agent is the one who initiates the payment. So, and they can see the response in real time. So they can say, yeah, I can see it was approved, and they can move on with their script. Or they say, fortunately, it was declined. Would you like to try a different card? And maybe you made a mistake during that process, during the data entry process. Maybe let's try it again. So this is where agent-assisted solution. This is what agent-assisted solution is. This is where the agent and the customer, they talk to each other. And sales call is just one of the application, but obviously, as you said, the experience, it's the customer experience. And we know that in some parts of the world, the customer experience maybe is not as important, but the more and more we see companies are competing on customer experience, where they provide, similar services. It is about the customer experience that you want your customers to have. And obviously, an agent-assisted payment is a much smoother and more human process compared to a self-service.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, the compromise does not seem as bad as I thought it was going to. Like, it sounds like the agent can't actually see the card details anyway if they're being keyed in. Like, I've got history, like back in a million years ago, working in a retail company. We were sort of IT for that, and that process, like the agents, you'd read it over the phone, and the agents would key it in to the website for the PCI provider, like website or their application and stuff. But the agent was in the middle of that process. But yeah, it sounds like by keying it in, like you're removing that ability for the agent to kind of skim it off on the way through.
Yeah, and also you don't have to pause your audio and video recording because no data is on the call recording, on the audio recording. The agent uses the customer uses keypad to enter the data, and because that page shows just the masked information, which is, PCI allows you to show the last 4 digits, and the card type, so that's the only information they see about the information they provide.
That sort of manual pause and resume always kind of struck me as a little bit of a failure in the process almost. So if you had an agent that was for some reason intent on capturing card details, putting that manual process in place for them to have to pause and resume the recording just seemed like it was fairly insecure.
Yeah, and as we've discussed, you're pausing the call recording. So we had a customer where they would use a pause and resume method, but it would fail sometimes. And what they had to do is they had to send off their recordings just straight after they were recorded. They couldn't get access to those. They were sending them off to a third party to actually listen through the call and make sure there's no card data, that it was actually paused, and then send it back. It cost them tens of thousands of dollars per month. And the earliest they could get access to the recording was over 30 days. So imagine that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It's crazy. Wow. Okay. So, and this is, you do this for Amazon Connect. How long have you been working with Amazon Connect?
Yeah, so we started working with Amazon Connect since it became public service. So we know that it was a closed beta trial with a few customers, but in 2017, when it became public, we realized that there's a gap in the market, and we switched our focus. We basically developed our solutions and switched our focus to Amazon Connect.
Got it. So you've been with them really from the beginning, I guess.
Yeah, just from very beginning. And yeah, we just quickly saw the potential of that platform, the flexibility, and running this as a cloud service in a typical AWS fashion. We just quickly saw that this is just an untapped opportunity.
And one of the interesting things that we noticed when we were kind of just talking about, what to talk to you about, is you use Amazon Marketplace as well. You advertise on Amazon Marketplace. So how do you find that? Like, how was that for you as setting it up, managing it? Do you find it's useful? Do you find you get good engagement through Marketplace?
Oh, there's quite a few questions in that question.
Yeah.
So how do we, in terms of setting it up, obviously, there's documentation, many pages of documentation. Reading through that and making sure, your systems are ready for that is quite important. But it achieves the ultimate goal where you can onboard the customer, or at least sign up the customer, without having to talk to anyone. So we do see a lot of marketplace offering where people, when they click sign up, someone has to email them, and then they create an account manually on the platform and things like that. AWS Marketplace provides all the tools for automatically signing up customers. So when the customer clicks subscribe to your service or to your product or on the marketplace listing, there is a way of getting all that information and set up the customer on your platform. So that's very important. If you're really looking into onboarding, customer anywhere, anytime, that's, I think, one of the most important things to have, is the ability for the customer to sign up by themselves without having to talk to anyone.
Yeah, absolutely. Like it plays into the whole AWS story of like provisioning and absolutely. If you can show up, get going without instantly, without having to wait for somebody else to do something on the back end, I think that's really powerful.
Yeah, and if you look at it, having a credit card and AWS allows you, by just having a credit card, allows you to run the infrastructure of any complexity. You can run, the infrastructure of the same size as, largest enterprises of the world. And we thought that it would be really differentiating to provide a PCI compliance solution that has kind of the same approach. By just having AWS accounts, you can go and subscribe to a solution and get access to the management console just the way AWS does it. So you have a management console where everything is self-service. You have access to the documentation, you have access to all the tools, and you can go and set up the solution without talking to anyone.
Nice. Nice. That's really cool. We're almost at the end of our time, but I just want to ask you, just because it's a good opportunity for us just to get some feedback from you over sort of on the Australian, New Zealand side of the world, that market for Connect. How do you find that? Because obviously we're blessed in the UK that most of the time, updates come out for the US and they come out for the UK kind of at the same time. Do you get them? What's that like for you on Amazon Connect? Do you perceive a lag or like?
And this is my personal experience. Usually we get features prior to other regions. And the reason for that is Australia is relatively small market, and it's much easier, to do gradual rollout here, where you trying out new features. Well, not trying out, but gradually rolling out, ensuring that all the processes, still work and everything's still in order. But we're also, Australia and New Zealand, we also have a lot of innovation coming out of our region. So there's quite a few startups that focus on Amazon Connect coming out of Australia. There's Local Measure, there's Operata, and others. So yeah, it's we don't feel left behind. We actually get access to a lot of features either at the same time or a bit earlier than everyone else.
That's good. It's always I don't know. I find it fascinating how you run like a global infrastructure at scale like that. And so like I'm always trying to find out like things like that, like rollouts and whether you have parts of the world that lag behind. But no, that's great. Like sounds like you're in a good place. So yeah, that's really cool.
It does quite often seem like you look at the Amazon Connect blog pages and almost a disproportionate number of the interesting blogs are coming from that region. So you mentioned people like Local Measure and Opera doing some great sort of pioneering stuff in the Connect ecosystem.
Well, what can I say? We love our technology.
Yeah, no, it's good, and it's good to have a strong worldwide ecosystem of partners. I think that's good for the platform. Fascinating. We could talk about this stuff all day, and it's been really, really good talking to you. But I think we should bring this episode to an end. Thank you ever so much, Dimitri, for your time. It's been really, really interesting. Thank you very much, Alex, as well. And thank you all for listening. Today, we talked all about PCI compliance with Dimitri from Sequence Shift. Next week on ACP, we're going to be talking to Scott Budding from Calabrio about workforce management in Amazon Connect. So be sure to subscribe in your favorite podcast player. That way you won't miss it. Whilst you're there, we'd love it if you would rate and review us. And as a new podcast, if you have colleagues that you think would benefit from this content, please let them know. To find out more about how Cloud Interact can help you on your contact center journey, visit cloudinteract.io. We're wrapping this call up now, and we'll connect with you next time.